your contractor told you otherwise, if your realtor told you otherwise, both of them are wrong. And
Sure.
the answer is very, very simple, and it sits in an office right down the hall here.
Yeah, it's a
Okay,
fair
that's
question.
my question.
Yeah, it's a fair question. So to answer it, we did. Now, we didn't call. In hindsight, it's easy to say that. That is very easy. But like I said, the agent, contractor, we looked at the website, and this is all documented. My wife took screenshots of the website at the time because of the acknowledgement from Tim that, yeah, we're getting that reworked because it's confused people. And I don't want to try to put words in your mouth, but I think that was the sentiment of the email. So we went and seeked out the information from the county website, and I would like to think that should be sufficient versus having to come to the building and to talk to somebody.
Okay, well, you would be in error on that because nobody can be absolutely certain from a website. You need to talk to the people who actually grant the authority to do that in order to get those questions accurately answered. With that, I will defer to other board members as they may wish to comment or question on this issue. Keith?
We were told, I went up and did a site visit in November before the snow hit.
Yep.
So I'm familiar with it, and I'm a former retired building contractor.
Sure.
And I'm familiar with Poplar Lake.
Yep.
Because I've done work there. But we were told that that actually was greater than 160 square feet because of the deck attached.
And Mr. Chair, thank you. Yeah, if I can go ahead and respond to that. And basically, yeah, the sentiment that I did relay to Mrs. Mortenson was that we have had people, kind of misinterpret that or take that, kind of the less than 161 square feet. And I believe Mr. Hineker kind of quoted from the website afterward that it says specifically, accessory structures less than 100 square feet provided they meet the required setbacks. And so that, that's where kind of that misunderstanding can sometimes take place. This structure actually is in excess of 161 square feet because of the decks. We include the decks in with the calculation of the square footage. So just the base structure itself, if that's less than 161 square feet, but you still add on the decks, that does make it greater than that. So a land use permit and a variance would be required for that.
Okay. Any other comments?
I have a question, Tim. What, he said that they approached the zoning office in June, July, and August, and it was delayed. Is that accurate? And why?
There were a number of steps, and this was a very difficult time for the office in the fact that Bill, that was the time where Bill was on his way out. And so initially they were dealing with Bill and other staff in the office. And then when they left is when I took over. We reviewed the application and noted that the other two small structures on the property that are included in on the variance request were not included in the beginning. Those were structures that had predated their purchase on there, but they were illegal structures constructed in the same fashion. They were smaller than 161 square feet, but they did not meet the setbacks, and so they needed variances as well. So we didn't consider the application to be complete until we received the information on all of the structures that needed to be reviewed as per the variance, and that's why it took until October to get it to be considered complete and then brought before the Board of Adjustment.
Thank you. And then I kind of like to look down the road, and I see the cabin is right next to the lake, and I see there's somewhere down the line, somebody's going to want a septic system. And has that been considered? And then this shed is probably being placed where a new cabin or an acceptable placement of a cabin would go. Has that been thought about? Because I don't want to put, having here next year, having created used up the space that would allow a septic system, or a different cabin.
Sure.
I don't know the cabin.
Yeah, so it's a rustic cabin, there's no heat, there's no running water. We have no intentions of putting a septic in. We're pretty rustic people, despite what other people have testified in front of you. So we don't have any intention of putting a septic in. We enjoy, our dream was, we want a Boundary Waters campsite that has a rustic cabin on it. So this is like our dream right here.
Okay.
So, no, that's not something we're considering. And then the location of the shed is, I mean, that's just, it's gonna be filled with.
How about bathing and dishwater?
Well, we use the property to go up on the weekends, so I guess you could say I'm a dirty person. I don't shower up there.
Okay,
We bring up our own water.
okay, all right. And then footings under this building, what do you got?
Yeah, holy cow, as I'm sure many, many contractors and probably yourselves would see. I mean, I was up there with an auger doing my best and like doing, trying to put these footings down. And I started calling contractors going, this is just rock. There's nowhere to go. And they said, well, do what you can. And they said, well, you're halfway up the trail, this is all you can do. So I said, do what you can. You hit bedrock, you drill into the bedrock, you drop rebar in, and then you pour the cement on top, and then you work the rebar into the bedrock. So that's what I did alone, which was a lot of work.
Is it a slab or is it piers?
It's piers, 6
Okay.
piers.
And then, I'll just see if I've got anything. I think that does it.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I kind of see these as almost two separate issues. The existence of the small shed that houses the composting toilet and the storage shed. It's hardly even a shed. It looks like a big box, but whatever. That other one that were pre-existing.
Yeah.
I sort of see those as kind of almost separate from the new construction in some ways, because they clearly predated the Mortensons. The practical difficulty was created by somebody else, not them. Now, I've looked at.
Keith, let's get a word from Tim on that. These were pre-existing to the new shed, but were they built outside of the code at the time they were constructed?
Yes,
What-
Mr. Chair, that is correct. They are considered to be illegal structures.
Right,
They-
okay.
But I'm
There's-
just thinking that I'm just trying to, let me, if I could finish, Mr. Chair, where I was going
Yeah,
with
no,
that.
go ahead, Keith.
So my feeling is that those existing buildings were there when you bought them, whatever. Who is Chris? Who's the contractor that told you this stuff?
Chris with Timberwolf, he was,
But he's-
Chris Gettle.
Gettle, there we go, yeah.
Chris Gettle?
Gettle, yeah, with Timberwolf Realty. So you
But who
can,
was the contractor?
well, he is a contractor. So apparently he's a contractor and he's a real estate agent. So he's the one who said, he did this himself, he said, 160 square feet, don't worry about permits.
I was just curious because I know a lot of the contractors, I worked with them
Yeah,
over the years. and-
sure.
And, okay, so where I was going with this is that you have, according to Mr. Hensch's survey, a buildable area of over 2,200 square feet on this property.
Yep,
And I've walked it, and that area over there is relatively flat.
yep,
And it was in November at the end of a wet season. It was no standing water, any issues like that.
yep,
And it was in this area that's outside of the wetlands, and it meets all the setbacks. So my inclination to say is that I don't see a practical difficulty with building the building in that location where you don't need a variance, and you don't have to get, that it would be a perfectly fine place to build it. Now, so my inclination is, I don't see that you've really demonstrated a practical difficulty here. And if there is one, it's one of your own creation, whether it was a mistake or not. That isn't even the issue. My inclination is to vote to grant the variance for the two small structures that existed. And I'll make a motion. I move that we grant a variance for the two small structures that were in existence prior to the Mortensons' purchase, but that we deny the variance for the shed, because I don't see a practical difficulty. There's 2,200 square feet is a large chunk of area that he could. that
Okay.
he could build a building.
Can I address
Might I
this?
just
He's making
address
a-
that for a second?
He's making a
amend it?
motion.
Your motion is a little confusing, because you say you want to decouple the issues, but you're still keeping them coupled.
Well, it's in one-
So-
I have to
so-
make the
So what I
motion.
would ask for is a motion to deal with one part first. The
Can we
two,
do that? Or do they have to be one motion for the total?
Well, Mr. Chair and Board, the variances can be voted, approved or denied in part or in whole. So, and it can be one motion. It can be a vote to deny part of it and to approve part of it. It may make more sense to you to vote to approve those portions of it and then make another motion to deny. Either of those cases technically would work, so long as it's done with any
Right.
appropriate.
Yeah.
that's my only point.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, because they're under one heading, we don't have two cases before us as
Well,
one response.
I-
That's why I just put it in one motion, okay? So,
Okay,
Mr.
I
Chair?
would prefer to see it in two, but you've made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
Can I speak to this?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, yeah, that is the elephant on this survey. There's no doubt about it. And you've walked the property yourself, so I would have to trust and assume that when you realize there's no garage on this property, there is no garage, there's nowhere to protect our vehicles, there's nowhere to put an ATV that we want to help plow this road, there's nowhere to put a snowmobile, there's nothing like that. You've walked the property. This is an obvious garage location. There's a driveway leading into it. That has been our intent, is let's first find a place to store our gear so we can enjoy this property instead of going back and forth with everything. And then in the future, when lumber prices are not what they were in June 2021, go and actually build a garage that we can protect our vehicles and probably an ATV and help plow that road. So that is, I think, pretty obvious looking at this survey and walking the property. That's a garage location. Putting a 160 square foot shed on that piece of land would be a waste of that land.
Okay, all right. Steve?
we're not here to debate with Mr. Mortenson about, this, Jerry. And my point was, when we walked it, you were there with me, we saw, in the area where the potential garage could be, we saw a trailer, camping, an RV trailer parked
Yep.
there. And we noticed that and it's indicated on the drawing, there's sort of a driveway going already into this spot, but then there's another cleared pathway from the other, two ways going back to, a pathway going back to the house from this sort of cleared area. What you choose to do 5 years from now, you could sell the property next year. I mean, we can't go on, the idea that you're going to reserve this piece of property for this piece of land for some scheme you might never do. We have to deal with the facts that are before us. And those facts say, to me, that a practical difficulty doesn't exist because you have an ample space. Maybe maybe the better approach is just to build the garage. And that's
If
not.
we could have afforded to, we would have been happy to.
Well, can
Can I give you some facts?
Economic issues are not part of this discussion.
Sure.
They're not-
Well, let me give you the
they're not
facts.
practical difficulties.
Half
So-
of our
So,
land is consumed by this
Steve,
road and the setbacks. 50%.
Let me add to that just a little bit, is that you made reference to this area being suitable for a garage, but that's a future consideration and cannot be used as a part of a practical difficulty, because it might be able to be used for something else. You're imagining a practical difficulty, not actually having one. The fact that that exists as an available building site obviates the other choice and says you have a building site for that structure.
So the fact that 95% of our land is non-buildable, you're saying that's not a practical
We
difficulty?
understand, that's right.
That
I mean,
seems impractical
That's a
to think that.
condition that people sometimes face with some of their properties up here, that a majority of the land may not be buildable.
Sure, that sounds like a practical
And
difficulty.
so you have to come up with other results. But here, you've got a situation, you have non-conforming structures that we're not making you go away with. We're not making you tear them down or anything like that. You still have the use of the cabins. Those two accessory structures may or may not be separated, but whatever the case, the shed itself becomes the real problem there. You built it within an improper setback when you had available land that it could have been built on, regardless of the rest of your site. It's buildable there and it's accessible from there.
You're refusing
And
to allow
that's-
us to maximize our
Point of
property.
order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
A motion has been made and seconded. We had closed the
Okay.
discussion to the public. I think we should vote on the
I-
motion.
Let's
I would
get
like
back to
have
that.
more discussion.
Okay.
I think that if this were a forward-looking application, not a after the fact, with the information we have in front of us, we would be considering this a lot more seriously. In the comments that Mr. Henchy has made in his letter, it really would not negatively impact the neighborhood. It fits with the neighborhood. I think legally, we need to look at this, whether it's after the fact or not, he can make an application for a variance, whether he's got a buildable site or not. He can ask for a variance to use the property how he wants.
That's an excellent point.
I would really like to
Yeah.
make that point, that
The-
with the
the-
information we have in front of us, I really think we would typically be looking at this a little differently. And he has the right to make the application,
Yes.
whether he has a buildable property or not.
And at that time, we would have determined whether there was a practical difficulty.
We need to treat this case the same as if it was that time.
Right,
Yes.
and I'm saying that because he has ample room on a land that doesn't require any variance at all, I don't see that there's a practical difficulty. And that's why I made
There's
the
not a
motion.
practical difficulty.
Well,
But
let's-
if what you're doing, though, is putting together in your motion issues that are separate from each other.
Okay,
And-
I'll
and-
call for the question.
Okay? The question has been called, the motion has been made and seconded. And would you restate the motion, Keith?
Okay, I move that we grant the variance for the two pre-existing small sheds that were on the property prior to the Mortenson's purchase, and that we deny the variance for the new construction that's non-conforming, and because no practical difficulty has been shown that requires a variance considering the
That's,
evidence of this
okay.
Henchy's survey.
We've got the motion there. The motion's been
Here's
made.
his hand up.
All in favor of approving the motion,
Mr.
signify
Chair.
by saying aye.
Tim has his hand
Okay,
up.
Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify whether that motion included the inclusion of the conditions, the recommended conditions that are in the narrative for the,
For the two existing,
no, the conditions that were listed in the original narrative.
Can you read them?
Yes.
I would also like to go through the fact findings supporting and denying the report, or the variance questions.
Okay, so the conditions, the recommended conditions, if it was to be approved, was all appropriate permits be obtained for the construction of the structures. The accessory structure shall not be moved any closer to Poplar Lake or added onto or have its exterior dimensions altered without first obtaining any variance or any other required permits. All erosion and stormwater runoff mitigation measures be implemented as directed by the Cook County Stormwater Enforcement staff. Newly constructed accessory structures would maintain a neutral and natural color so as not to be obvious from the lake, and the property shall conform to Minnesota Rule 7080 and the Cook County Septic Ordinance.
so those conditions would apply to the two structures that we allow to remain, correct?
They would have,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question to understand what you're proposing here?
So, now the only other question I have is, well, a motion has been made, seconded, I think we should.
And we're in
The question's
discussion.
been called. I
Right.
think we've discussed this to the point where.
where we're at right now.
Okay.
All those in favor of the motion as stated signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
The motion is denied.
Okay. I would like to walk through the findings of fact supporting, accepting, or denying the variance application. Number one,
What are we applying them to right now?
the request for a variance for the new building and the two sheds.
Okay, so we're back to the main
Correct.
motion of all three at once. So either approve them all or deny them all. All right? Is that correct?
Or whatever motion evolves.
I mean, that's what I understand.
Yep.
Okay, all right, let's proceed
Keith's
through this
motion went
then.
away.
We're now back here. All right, you want to go through these questions? Let's go
Yep.
ahead and go through them. Is the variance consistent with the goals and policies of the comprehensive land use guide plan and with harmony within the general purpose and intent of the Cook County zoning ordinance?
I say no.
Any
I
other?
believe it is.
Okay,
How
so,
do you justify the fact that there is a place to put this structure?
I
That-
don't see where there is
We're
a
not,
setback
we're not,
in here.
we're not asking if there's a place to put, we're asking if this
I don't
is
see-
in harmony with the purpose and
Well,
intent of the
the
guide plan.
distance
And the guide
here is
plan
60.
allows
No.
these
It's the
Yeah.
intent and purpose of the zoning
Right, so
ordinance.
that's
And
where-
the zoning
The
Area
ordinance
of the road
says
setback.
100 feet back from the
right,
lake.
they decided to use, that's.
Well, here's the
Yeah,
other
you're right.
thing.
I mean,
to
either
think
way,
of,
it's gonna
you
be
know,
in.
To think of as far
require a
as,
variance.
Yes.
But
when we talk
Okay.
about maintaining the character
We
of the
got two
area,
conversations
is
going.
how about the water quality of the lake? The reason we have these setbacks is to
But
maintain.
we're not here to debate the reasons for some of these questions. We're simply to
All right.
answer them. So.
So I say no.
Okay, I understand.
Because
We're
of-
not going to take votes on each of these, but we're going to kind of give them either a negative kind of, we all agree that it does, or it all agree that it doesn't. Or there's some ambivalence in the middle. That one has ambivalence in the middle. We have some difference of opinion on it. So, question number 2, is the proposed use of the property allowed in the land use district in which the property is located?
Yes.
I think it is. I think we all agree on that one. Okay, is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner, not permitted by the Cook County zoning ordinance?
I would say that the type of structures, the size, the scope, the way it's laid out is reasonable in fitting with
Okay.
the neighborhood and character of the
General,
Ridge Road.
I could agree with that.
I agree.
okay. So we're okay there. Has the property owner established that the practical difficulty involved is due to circumstances unique to the property and not created by the property owner?
No.
I think we're pretty unanimous on that one, too, that it does not fit. 5, will approving the variance maintain the essential character of the locality?
Yes.
And
I guess it's ambivalent. It's a question of what you think of water quality in the lake and things like that. And it's-
the water quality isn't the issue here.
That's
Well, that's why we have setbacks.
No,
And
that
the,
may be so, but we're not discussing that part of it. Simply is, in general, the essential character of the locality maintained, and I think there's some consensus.
I think there's more to that than it's the neighbors who see this going on, and there is a perfectly good spot for this little building, and if we approve this variance, we're blessing not utilizing the zoning ordinance.
Okay, I'm going to take an exception to that because we don't use precedent in this board.
I'm not
and
saying
when-
precedence, it's the flavor of the neighborhood. The
The
neighbors are
flavor of the
watching.
neighborhood is
He was
very
a-
consistent with
I
what
can
he's doing.
speak to the neighbors.
No,
And
but
I think that most of the neighbors up there have the same kind of a problem that he does. That
And
the,
I guess I would suggest, if we go look at number 4, the real practical difficulty is the road itself and the easement is what's creating the real issue in buildability and function on these
Okay.
lots. throughout the neighborhood.
Well, then why not give a variance from the road? It's a private road, it's not much more than a driveway.
We'll get back to that in a moment here, because we're discussing other issues here. So on number 5, there's at least ambivalence on that, even though the consensus seems to be that it does not, that it does maintain the essential character. Number 6, has the property owner established that the practical difficulty involves more than economic considerations alone?
No.
No, I don't think that there's, well, actually, I'm going to question that for just a second.
Why are we ignoring the current ordinance
How
on
would-
this?
How would any amount of dollars change the practical difficulty on this site?
Well, I just don't think it's an issue.
We're looking at the land as the real issue here with
Right.
fitting structures within setbacks, wetlands, and road easements, and lake shores.
And
Yeah,
there's a
very-
2,200 square foot area that it meets all those
But it
requirements.
also has limited access to that area, which creates a problem.
We all want our-
of its own.
Jerry, there's a path, the owner or somebody has cut a path, 2 paths going right to that spot.
I'm understanding that. So in any case, we've gone through these questions, we've addressed them all, so now we all have an idea where we're at. This does not give us an answer to the issue itself. Do we have a motion to deal with this? Do you want to separate the issues of the structures on there and then deal with them separately? Or do you want to go strictly for denial or acceptance of the whole thing?
Okay, I'll move that we grant a variance for the 2 existing structures, small structures that predated.
Okay, so you're essentially moving to
With condition.
remove those as a separate issue, and we'll
That's a
vote on them
separate
separately.
motion.
Okay, all right.
I'll
that-
second.
That's a second. Is there any further discussion on that issue?
I don't know if I have a real specific on the motion. I'm really looking at Wayne's letter here and going, only 8 of the 23 platted lots meet the 100-foot setback requirement. Not to really pick out Wayne, but I got a lot of respect for Wayne, and Wayne certainly is not liberal in how he passes judgment on these lots. He's very conservative and concerned about quality of, water quality, wetlands. I put a lot of weight in what Wayne is saying. And I read this to be that Wayne sees the difficulty of the site, and as the surveyor that was out there, how many of those I still guess I have questions about it, but I see it as if we were forward-looking, we would approve this as a whole.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to just make a comment. The motion has been made for the 2 that were
Right.
built prior, and I'd just like to share some information. I've been to that property numerous times. It used to be a vacation rental, and that is why the composting toilet was there. There was a shower that was on the other building, an outside shower. And I'm very familiar with the property. And the intent of the previous owner was to, at some point, build on the other side of the road. So there was a vision that there would be at some point, and I don't know if that was going to be a garage or living quarters, but that was kind of the vision, and that's why those pathways are there. But I've been familiar with the property for a number of years, and I would submit that, when you purchase a property, you kind of assume, and maybe the realtors assumed, that all of those things were built with permits. But I do not see that Mr. Mortenson should be held liable for those 2 particular buildings.
Okay. We'll come back to the motion. We do have a motion on the floor that has been seconded, and that is to approve the 2 accessory structures that exist.
With the condition.
With the conditions, yeah. Is there any further discussion on that? Hearing none, I'll assume we're ready to vote. All in favor of removing those 2 buildings,
No.
of approving those 2 buildings for a variance, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So those two structures are now isolated and they're taken care of. We have only one issue left, and that is the shed that initiated the entire issue. Do we have a motion on that?
I make a motion that the structure be moved to a different site that's within the,
We can't make a motion to make him do something.
Just
We can only approve or
Just to
deny.
deny or-
okay, I make a motion that we deny the request for a variance for the shed.
Okay, the motion for denial has been put forth. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, is there further discussion on that issue?
I would only repeat that the rationale for the removal is that I think the person that made the motion, Mrs. Matchmaster and myself, both feel that there is no real practical difficulty, that there's plenty of area on the piece of property to accommodate any kind of a building without any kind of a variance, as indicated by Mr. Hensch's survey. So,
Okay. Charlie?
I really disagree. I think it's a difficult lot. I see that there's that what I would think is actually, as a builder also, would suggest that's a really small area to be buildable. It'd be really hard to put a structure in there. And the adjoining utilities that would need to go with it in 2,200 square feet. I see this as reasonable. So I just fundamentally disagree. I don't know that we need to discuss this much more.
2,200 square feet is
Adam,
quite a substantial
I'd like to hear
building.
from Adam next, please.
Well, anywhere on here to put that build in, you'd have to get a variance
No,
setback.
not according to Wayne's. He's indicated an area of 2,200 square feet.
This bubble right here,
that-
but don't you have to be 25 feet?
He's got the
He has
setbacks
drawn it.
indicated
It is-
there, Adam.
So right in this triangle?
Yeah.
If you look,
On the
it's-
east side of the
you gotta
road.
look really
Right.
carefully. It's right over here. And we're not talking about walking thousands of feet.
Show
I mean,
him
it's a short walk back and forth across.
So this is the buildable area.
Yeah.
This is where the shed is now.
Yep.
So in access to the shed would be like this.
So right in here is,
That,
would be in between these two lines right there.
right.
Doesn't the fact you have to strain your eyes to see that area indicate this is a pretty difficult lot? You can't even see it.
Well, the fact that the zoning ordinance and the website says it has to be within the setback requirements. This clearly is not there. And
It's the
I'm,
reason of a variance.
well,
That's over here.
the interpretation that this was okay to build without a permit is not correct, because it does say that you have to meet the setbacks. And that goes away. The other
Must be
question I
variance.
have, and I want you to understand, is that if this is approved, it's not a place that can be habitated. You know, there's no bunkhouse, it looks to me like a bunkhouse.
You can look in there, it's full of gear and heaters and kayaks.
They all
and-
are.
Yeah.
Would that, I mean, would that?
I think we're getting in the
If we
weeds
added a
here, Judy.
condition that it
It-
could not be.
No,
it-
the only reason I can't vote for this is the fact there is a place that it's within the required setbacks. And I don't see that we should be approving things just because it's convenient. And his own person demonstrated that it was within this, it's doable on this property.
We disagree in the sense that you're saying we shouldn't even entertain something if there's a buildable site, and
Well-
I would suggest that that's the whole reason this board exists, to look at specific lots that are difficult and to determine if
We-
it-
we
if it
are looking
fits
I
at
think
it.
Charlie has stated something there that doesn't seem to be well understood among the board. A variance can be granted even if there is not a practical difficulty. It does not require a practical difficulty. That is simply the easiest venue to satisfy. there may be other reasons or other conditions that we look at in this that says that this is reasonable, given the bifurcated property that exists on, and that it disengages substantial portions of the property. That is also a valid issue, and I think that that's been brought up. And Charlie seems to be championing that. Now what do I hear from Adam?
Okay, is there a motion on the floor?
Yes.
I'll call for the question.
Okay. So the motion has been made to deny the application for a variance. No conditions attached to that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
I
Aye.
would make a motion to approve with the conditions as written. I need to hear those conditions again, though. I don't have them in front of me. I do think,
The motion lost, by the way. I should state that.
Right.
I do think that it would be valid to have if it's not already in the conditions, have a statement that this is not a habitable structure. Without further variance request.
Tim?
Okay. All appropriate permits be obtained for the construction of the structures. Number 2, the accessory structure shall not be moved any closer to Poplar Lake or added onto or have its exterior dimensions altered without first obtaining a variance and any other required permits. Number 3, all erosion and stormwater runoff mitigation measures be implemented as directed by the Cook County Stormwater Enforcement staff. Number 4, the newly constructed structure would maintain a neutral and natural color so as not to be obvious from the lake. Number 5, property shall conform to Minnesota Rule 7080 and the Cook County Septic Ordinance.
And
Want to add your,
And that was, I would like to add, if that's appropriate, that this is not, whatever's the right verbiage to say, this is not a habitable structure, this is not gonna become a bunkhouse, that this is what it is, a shed.
I think that's appropriate too. I got a building permit for my garage last year, and it said right at the top of the building permit that no, it not be used for any sort of habitation, no plumbing.
I think
Building
that,
permit.
Tim, am I correct that accessory buildings are not allowed to be habitable unless they have a specific permit to permit that?
We do actually specifically identify habitable accessory structures such as a bunkhouse or something like that. It has its own designation
Okay,
to it.
okay. So, yeah, I think that's addressed essentially then, that it cannot be used as a habitable structure.
If that's already addressed, then we don't need to add it, but.
Correct.
So that it's understood.
Okay.
And
So you
motion
are making
with
the motion
original,
with those conditions?
Conditions as written that Tim just read.
Okay, the motion has been made to approve with the conditions stated. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion on the issue? Hearing none, I'll assume we're ready to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign?
aye.
Okay. Issue has been decided.
Okay. All right, well, thank you, Board and Chair. I appreciate it. I'll leave you to conduct your business.
Next item.
What? That was 3-2 approved, yep.
Next order of business is, whoops, where'd it go? Application, parcel number 27-145-0345, 219 Peninsula Point Trail, Woodson, Minnesota, 55612. Property description, lot 34, west of County Road 38, Section 35, Township 61 North, Range 3 West. He has been paid. Case is number 2022-1V. Tim, or Neva. I got to get used to the
I know.
neither.
It's a new phase. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The property was created as part of the 1925 Caribou Lake plat. The rearrangement survey was completed in 1983 by Toffee Surveying. A copy of this survey is included with the packet. This lot has received 2 previous variances. In 1980, a variance request was granted to the then owner Douglas Nordahl for the shoreline setback of 45 feet and road setback of 30 feet to construct a home and garage. The variance was granted upon the following reason. The shape of the property prevents any development on this lot without granting a variance. The granting of this request will not materially affect the health or safety of persons residing in the area adjacent to this property. The condition of approval was that the existing cabin was to be removed from the property. The then existing cabin was located approximately where today's variance request is asking for a garage. In 2003, a variance request was granted to the previous owners, the George Quinn Estate, to place of the drain field 90 feet from shoreline, 10 feet from the dwelling, and 2 feet from the side lot line. The basis for the 2003 decision was that the proposed septic system was the most environmentally effective solution for dealing with the practical difficulties imposed by the small, narrow lot. The conditions of approval included compliance with septic requirements, the removal of a small shed across the road, and the removal of a screened porch on the cabin. The 2003 variance application explains that in the mid-1990s, the garage was constructed originally in the 1980 variance, was converted into living space to add a 3rd bedroom and 2nd bath, which were added to the cabin. The parcel is located on a particularly narrow section of the peninsula on Caribou Lake. The immediate Peninsula Point landscape includes a number of conforming and non-conforming parcels and structures. The geology of the point and small size of historic state-plotted lots has meant that most new construction along the Peninsula Point corridor requires variance relief. 4 out of 5 of the immediately adjacent neighboring properties have received variance approvals for the shoreline and/or road setbacks in this narrow area of the peninsula. I did provide a summary of some of those variance approvals, which I'm not going to read right at the moment, but I hope you've had a chance to review them. As far as this variance request summary goes, the applicant, William Krause, is requesting relief from the shoreline setback and county road setback requirements to construct a 24-foot by 26-foot garage. The proposed garage will be a standard 2-stall garage with no pressurized water or plumbing. The proposed structure placement location is 50 feet from Caribou Lake shoreline and 35 feet from County Road 38 centerline. The applicant wishes to place the garage as close to the southeastern property line as possible while still meeting the variance relief of the 50-foot shoreline setback and 35-foot road centerline setback. There's approximately 98 feet from the shoreline to the center line of the road on the southeast side of the lot. Caribou Lake is classified as a recreational development lake, which has a structure setback requirement of 100 feet. Peninsula Point is county road. I provided a summary of what those encroachments are. In general, the request is a 50% encroachment on the lake setback and a 30% encroachment on the county road setback. For consideration, staff have worked with the applicant to balance his request with the interest of protecting shore impact zone, which is 50 feet from the shoreline, and the public safety benefits of placing the structure away from the center line of the road. Given the unique shape of the lot and the geography of the peninsula, there's no conforming location to construct a garage on this site. Records from the Environmental Health Office indicate that the septic system is non-compliant and corrective work was supposed to be completed in April 2018. The septic system will need to be brought into compliance before the issuance of any land use permit. If approved, the following conditions may be applied to this variance. The property septic system shall be repaired and conform with Minnesota Rule 7080 and Cook County septic system requirements. The setback distance shall be established by the BOA for both the lake and road setback. No vegetation shall be removed from within the shore impact zone, and only vegetation necessary to facilitate demolition and/or construction shall be removed. I would add to this that I've worked with the applicant through the review process to identify where this proposed garage location is. So some of the pictures that are in this packet were identifying like the location of the motorboat as kind of the garage location. But since then, the applicant and I have been working, and he's now proposing, it's more of a conceptual request that the specific location was not staked out if you did a site visit. So in general, he wants it to be as close to that south property line, but with that needing 50 feet from the lake and 35 feet from the road. So it's not right up to that property line. It has to be closer to the house than that. So I apologize for some of the ambiguous nature of that. 27 letters of notification were sent to adjacent property owners. 1 comment letter was submitted on behalf of the Caribou Lake Property Owners Association Environmental Subcommittee with interest to alternative locations for the garage placement to achieve a greater lake setback, as well as reducing the size of the garage. The association also requests attention to vegetative screening requirements, condition of unobtrusive building color, and stormwater runoff management. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, after that narrative, is there somebody in the room representing this case? Step the microphone and identify yourself, please.
My name is William Krause. I live in Mound, Minnesota. The reason for my wishing to have the garage on the southeast corner or edge of the property is more that it'd be less impact to the existing vegetation. It'd be less trees that I have to remove to make space for this. Also, the adjacent property is a 0.1 acre lot that is a non-built, there's no house there and there won't ever be. There's just a dock and a shed. So it wasn't impacting anybody's adjacent lot by doing that. But the Caribou Lake Association, they suggested that I move the garage closer to my house to kind of make it look more like one structure or one location. And I've looked at that, and I can do that too. It would be a lot more vegetation being taken out, not between the 50-foot and the lake, but just north of that, beyond that. So I'm willing to put it anywhere along that property line that meets the 50-foot setback and the 35-foot setback, that, whatever you guys would like me to do. He also talked about building a smaller structure, and I'm curious, he said 20 foot by 20 foot. When somebody says that up here, does that mean foundation size, 20 feet by 20 feet? Or does that mean count the eave, the dimensions of the
No,
eaves?
it's the foundation, the footprint.
Is it?
So,
Because my 24 by 36 was including the eaves.
yeah, I think is it the exterior wall or including the eaves for that?
We do include the eaves. In fact, in most of the decisions, that's expressly stated in there is the eaves,
Okay.
the drip line.
So I don't know if the man from the association was talking foundation. He wanted 20 by 20. I'm asking by 24 by 26. So we're not that far off. And I could go, I can go smaller. I want to have a garage that I can hold a boat and a snowmobile, and in the wintertime have a spot for a car in there. Also, the way the garage is placed on the property, I can rotate it so it's narrower, so I get more distance from the lake, and come in from a side. So that, I'm flexible on that as well. The only other comment, the original variance you said was allowed for the construction of a house and a garage. The garage is actually part of the house. It's an attached garage. In fact, when we bought the property, we didn't at that time even know that had been a garage. It was, at that time was a bedroom. Okay.
Okay. Is there anybody else in the room that's got, okay. I'll close the floor and go bring it to the board. And so do any of you have questions on this? Go ahead, Keith.
I took the opportunity, before it got really cold, to drive up there and walk, saw the situation, everything. And so, Neva and Mr. Krause, what you're saying is this blue shaded area is now the area that the garage is going to be in?
Which page are you on, Keith?
This one here? This lightly blue shaded?
Yep, so the
Okay.
applicant provided a revised sketch,
Yeah,
so
okay.
it's gonna be this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, my question, Mr. Krause, is this, have you really considered the possibility of attaching the garage to the house?
Yeah, I looked at that some today, and the problem is that my front door is right where you would attach it. I mean, it would basically be remodeling my house.
Well, I noticed two entrances. Is that a long hallway along the side of the?
It's a little storage closet that you get to from the outside of the house.
Okay. But, well, the reason I bring it up is that, they've got a pretty substantial area that's already compacted. It would be.
Where the driveway is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And where your parking space where, I pulled the tape and measured, and you could fit a reasonable sized building in there. And, I just bring it up because it seems to me like, because I reread the Lake Association's letter, and I thought 20 by 20 is too small. I mean, when, we always think of a garage basically as pretty much 24 by 24, as a
Right.
standard size garage.
Right.
And then you go a few feet deeper, that's a little extra. But my only hope was that you could have found a way, I'm a builder, and I looked at the way the roof line of your house is, that you could have maintained that entrance between the garage and the house, and put the garage right, adjacent to
Oh,
the house.
so I wouldn't, okay, so I wouldn't have a front door, it would just be through the garage?
No, you could just leave, the garage could be, I pulled the tape, and there's, from the corner post that sits out at the corner
Yeah,
of your walkway, that's a, 3 to 4 foot walkway that goes along the side of the house now.
yeah,
So if you went from that point out, 24 feet, and then you went in,
Draw it on
that
your,
basically is a parking spot now.
draw it on your map.
yeah, I'm not,
Well, I'd be just going from the corner, the existing corner here, if you just went out in this direction, here's that little entryway that you talk about right here, this part here. So my inclination would be, now there's two issues. You want to have 20 feet out here, you've got a power pole.
Yeah.
Which you probably are mindful of if you're going in and out of that parking spot.
yeah.
And then about 27 feet, you've got a big spruce or fir tree.
Right.
That probably should come down,
Well,
because it's.
for my, updated, location, it would have to come down,
Yeah, well, I mean, what I'm getting at, if you could, even if you could utilize, slide the garage over more in this direction, so
Yeah.
that there would be less fill
Right,
and less disturbance.
well,
And it would tie it closer to the house.
Right.
Make it more compact.
well,
footprint.
that was the point from the Lake Association, was.
Right.
He talked about putting the garage on the driveway, and I thought he meant,
Oh, here.
utilizing
Oh, no,
the existing
no,
driveway,
no.
not physically on the driveway.
No. So what I'm getting at is that, I know you have a kitchen window here that's about 20 feet from this corner in.
Yeah,
So you don't want to cover up the window. But I mean, you could say, use at least half of that 20-foot wide area as part of the garage. And then just, extend out the distance you need. And you could do it 26 feet wide by 24 deep. That would give you extra storage on the one side. I mean, you're going to put a 16-foot door in, it looked
Yeah,
like?
yeah.
From your drawing. So, I mean, you'd still have your 26 by 24, but we'd just be moving it closer to the house.
and then I would lose my front door.
No, I mean, I'm not talking about attaching it.
You're not talking about attachment?
No, no.
How much distance between the house and the
Well,
garage?
I mean, whatever is reasonable here, maybe 8 feet, so this is.
Okay, so not attached?
No.
Okay, 8 feet.
In something in that range, and then you've got another, because then you've got all this, then this part of the driveway is already in. If you want to run wiring out to the garage, it's a simple matter of just running a line
Yeah.
out to the garage rather than trenching out to where the new
Matt,
garage is going to be.
I
There's a
can-
bunch of, I looked at it from a practical point of view.
Yeah.
And considering the Lake Association's viewpoints, and it seemed to me that would be a better solution,
Well,
but.
I
that's
think
neither
being
here nor
closer
there.
to the driveway would be good. I'd like to still have a distance between the house and the garage and be able to have a driveway into that area. So I would still be making use of the existing driveway. That big tree would have to come out.
That'd probably have to come out, that's probably gonna come down on its own. When they get that big, they snap off in a good wind.
Yeah,
But, so you could utilize some of the space, the existing parking space for the new garage.
No,
And still give you a parking space between the house and the
Okay.
garage.
okay. I mean, like I said, my updated position was moving it from where I initially wanted it to where the Lake Association, I think, wants it. It'd take down a few more trees, but like you're saying, that maybe those trees need to come down anyway. My only reason for putting on the far end was just reduce the amount of trees that I got to take down.
Well,
Everybody likes trees.
There's trees either way.
There
you
are,
know.
yeah.
But I mean, you're still, and the other advantage here is puts more of it, back of that 50-foot line, I think,
Yeah,
which was one of the other issues that they raised by
Yeah.
moving it. It just seems to me too, the other issue is along that road, there's all these driveways, and then you start adding another driveway, and then the snow plows, you know how all that goes. And I
Right.
mean, it seems to me not only is it a practical, but it answers a better use.
well, I like the idea of consolidating the driveways and not having to put in another one and plow another one, and, and to make that work. So I'm for that.
So could how would we,
I would think we
Well,
should
let's hear from other members of the board at
Sure.
this time, before we make any motion.
well, I wasn't going to make a motion. I had a question.
Charlie?
Well, I guess, let's hear Keith's question first, but then I guess I wanted just a little clarification on what we actually have to do with this one tonight.
Well, that's where I was going, Charlie. When do you want to start construction on this? Sometime this spring, early spring?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I'm not in a big hurry, but I'd like to sometime in
Okay, that
spring,
being
late
said,
summer.
would you object to coming back to the board with a revised location for the building? I mean, it's not going to affect your building schedule. I mean, because what I'm getting at, it's kind of hard for us to say here.
Okay, I mean, I see what you mean.
Delineate
Come back
exactly-
with an exact position of where I want it and get
Right,
approval
right,
for that.
right.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
I think that seems like a reasonable.
I would guess that, I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, knowing exactly where is better, but otherwise I believe if I'm understanding right, we're really asking about the 35 and the 50, and there could also maybe be some, I think it sounds like the applicant's really understanding the issues that the neighborhood has, that staff has as far as where it's placed laterally along the shoreline. So we could deal with it now and allow that, but if the applicant and staff if we're good with getting a specific, that's always better.
Yeah, I think because then it satisfies, if this was time critical, your contractor was ready to go dig,
No, I understand.
we have,
The only thing critical is, I'd like to know that this is,
Right, right.
some feedback that this seems like a reasonable thing to do and has got good chance of being approved. All I need to do is come back with, stakes in the ground and a better plan. I'm fine with that.
right.
Okay.
I've got a couple questions.
Sure.
Go ahead.
The sewer, it was supposed to be done by April of 18?
Yes. I have been calling every contractor I can find. It's a very simple little fix. I've been working with Mitch about it, on how to get it fixed. There's an inlet pipe on the septic tank, or an outlet pipe on the septic tank that has a leak somewhere below it.
Okay.
I've got instructions from Mitch, and he says I can do this myself, which I didn't really think I could do, but I've talked with my general contractor, and in the spring, when we can dig, we're gonna dig down 4 feet and replace that pipe
Okay.
and get Mitch's approval on it.
Okay,
I don't know, if anybody knows a septic contractor, let me know. I mean, I literally got a list from Mitch of everyone in the county and called, and I got full voicemail boxes on
Yeah.
half of them, it's just crazy, yeah.
If I may, Mr. Chair, with the applicant's approval, I would make a move that we would table this until he comes back with his, with the defined distances, and it's.
Okay.
I was out there with my 100-foot tape that I carry around.
You probably saw my footprints, and,
Yeah.
did you find the wellhead that?
No, I didn't go way out.
Okay.
But I was, but you can pretty much tell, pull the tape from the corner of the building. It's not like it has to be surveyed.
Right.
So you could allow,
No, my only issue with measuring is the middle of the roadway on a dirt road, in the wintertime. It all depends on where the snowplow driver had been plowing that week. It moves around a lot, and I don't know if you have any guidance on how to find that center line of the road.
Yeah, I think it's okay, Mr. Chair. we can schedule a time to meet out there together.
Okay.
And go through it and come up with a plan and to stake it off so that when it's brought to the board, it's been better identified.
Okay, so you think you and I can go
Yeah.
out there and do that and
Yeah.
have enough data to bring it back here?
I think
Okay,
so, yeah.
okay.
If I may, you know, the other thing you could envision, depending on the point at which you start measuring, I don't think there'd be a big problem if it ended up being a little closer, as long as it was brought in line with the existing building.
Okay, hey, tell you what,
It would look-
that can all be addressed
Right.
with further discussion. We don't have to do that here now. I think we're looking for a proposal, and it has been moved to table the issue. So I would
I have
entertain
one
a
more thing of
second.
discussion. The picture of the garage looks like a 412 pitch, and it says it's 16 feet tall.
Yeah, the picture was meant to represent not the final design of the garage. So, where did it say 16 feet?
Well, if it's 24 feet, say the gable didn't face the lake, but was parallel to the road, say, just for thinking here. If you have an 8-foot sidewall and a 412 pitch on a 24-foot building, it's going to be about 14-plus feet. You know,
Okay.
it varies a little bit. So, I
But-
mean, 16 feet is pretty close.
Okay,
My concern is, and it's stated right here, the permit, the original variance, which was requested, was for a house and a garage.
okay.
And
At this
now it's a
point,
three-bedroom house.
those issues are not relevant to the question, or the motion that's been posed. The motion has been posed to table this, so all this discussion can take place when we have a real proposal. So we have a motion to table this to a later date. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to table this to a later date, not specified. I think we'll leave that to, yes, Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like, at this point in time, since it seems to be a voluntary measure for the applicant to waive the 60-day decision requirement that's put on by the state, by Minnesota Statute 1599, if you were just to go ahead and waive that.
I'll waive that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Tim. So the motion has been made and seconded. This discussion is complete. Is there all in favor of tabling, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, the motion has been tabled to a future date.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the Board of Adjustment.
I'll
Okay,
second.
it's been moved to adjourn. No discussion needed on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Done.
Keith.